Okay, hello everyone. This is CapitaLand Integrated Commercial Trust FY23 financial results dated 6 February 2024. Right, so their occupancy has gone up slightly to 97.3%, which I think is very healthy. Okay, property value has gone up by 1.2%. Right, this is again a good result given that most REITs, their property value have dropped due to high interest rate environment. Right, the WALE is down slightly. Rental revisions in the retail side is up 8.5% and office is up 9%. Right, both are very good results. Right, retail portfolio wise, their shopper traffic is up 8.6%, but tenant sales is up 1.8%. All right, we'll see why this trend is a slight concern later. Right, occupancy cost is down slightly. Right, so clearly the DPU this financial year is better than last financial year. It's up 1.6%. Right, so this is a rare REIT that has gone against the trend to have an upward spike in DPU. Right, so 1.6% is quite a good result. Right, so this achieved despite the fact that they retain more money, right, 12.7 million, right, for general corporate and working capital purposes than last financial year. Right, so even though this year they set aside more money, right, they are able to distribute more distributable income, which results in a larger DPU. Right, so this is a happy thing for unit holders. Right, so they here discuss why their property value actually went up. Right, so you can see across the board that Germany and Australia are down 10%, but luckily predominantly this REIT is based in Singapore, so Germany and Australia isn't such a big part of the portfolio. And Singapore, even though it only improved by 2%, the fact that it's majority a Singapore REIT and all the value is in Singapore, right, so they basically managed to pull up the REIT's value by 1.2%. Right, balance sheet is more or less constant at for NAV rather is more or less constant at 2.07 for a long time now. Right, I checked the last few financial reports, it's always been this value. So more or less assets and liabilities have not changed much. Alright, we worry a bit about the refinancing of this debt though. Right, so 16% of debt. I'm not sure how much this is going to raise their overall interest expense, right, so this is a point of concern. Right, so 60% of debt is due for refinancing this year. Right, so I want to look at their balance sheet because this is always a concern during this period whereby interest rates are higher. Right, how much more are they paying for their debt? Right, so latest information suggests that they have paid off some debt, so you can see the borrowing has gone down from 9.7 billion to 9.5 billion, so leverage has dropped slightly. Right, so fixed interest rate borrowing is 78%, which is okay. I think interest coverage hasn't changed much, right, so it's 3.1%, but I want to compare the older values. Right, so you can see that from December 2021 interest coverage ratio was 4.1 times, then 1 year later in 2022, right, it became 3.7 times, and now in 2023 December it is 3.1 times. Right, so yeah, my worry is that this number will drop further with the refinancing of the debt we discussed earlier. Right, and of course cost of debt as well is the other thing we are worried about. At this point it's 3.4%. You can see 3 months ago it was 3.3%, and 1 year ago it was 2.7%, and even 1 year ago, even 1 year before that, it was 2.3%. So it has jumped in a short 2-year span from 2.3% to 3.4%. Right, so this is a big point of concern. Again, I'm worried about this number spiking. Right, so moving on. Yeah, we've already discussed the retail portfolio has done well. Right, it's like the downtown malls have done slightly better than suburban malls. Right, but I think both are doing well. Right, so we compare this with the last time they had these numbers, right, in FY2022. Right, so this FY2023, so in FY2022 their numbers were quite bad. Right, so you can see that the downtown malls were actually 0.2, right, and the suburban malls were actually 2.3. Right, so overall their rents actually only went up by 1.2%. Right, So clearly this financial year they did a lot better in terms of rental revision, right? So in terms of shopper traffic, this is a point of concern. So I'm going to show you this year's results. So here, year on year, right, the the retail portfolio's sales, right, is gone up by 1.8%. But I compare this with year to date for September 2023. So that means the first 9 months of this year is actually up 4%. And if I compare the first 6 months of this year, it's up 6%. So I think you are seeing a trend, right? The spending has dropped quite badly. From the first 6 months, the retail portfolio improved by 6%, right? To first 9 months, the first 6 months, there's an improvement of 6%. The first 9 months, there's an improvement of 4%. And the whole year is an improvement of 1.8%, right? So it looks like the improvement is declining, right, from the previous financial year. And they suggest here is due to uncertainty in job markets, moderating wage growth, and GST hike, right? And they suggest that the big ticket items, people are spending less on them, which could be a possibility. So this is a slight trend we have to worry about. I tried to have a look at the other REITs, right? So so VivoCity, you can see the numbers are quite similar for the year-on-year numbers, right? So for CICT it's 8%, right? So let me check. 8.6%, right? And then retail portfolio up 1.8%. So VivoCity not very far off, right? Shopper traffic up 10.3%. Sales is slightly worse than CICT, up only 1.3%, right? Then we look at FCT. This one is just first quarter results, but we can just have a look at it, right? They said tenant sales, right, adjusting for renovation, right, tenant sales will be up 1.1% year on year, which is quite similar numbers, right? We look at land lease, right, tenant sales year on year increased 0.6%, right? So actually land lease also not so good numbers, but you can see all the numbers are roughly the same, right? So we have a look finally at what are people spending on, right? So generally you can see that this is this is the improvements. So these are improvements. So what are people spending more on, right? So they're spending more on shoes and bags, and I think maybe the report has some sense in saying that the expensive stuff they are not spending so much on. So home furnishing, which I think is high ticket item, as well as jewelry and watches, right? So these are the two high expense. Maybe you can consider them partly discretionary, right? Especially watches, right? So which probably isn't too good for the hourglass, right? So tourism. So this pink slide means that it's not from the current financial report. I took it from some older financial report. So this was a CICT presentation from sometime in September, October last year, right? And they were projecting that visitor arrival should improve, right? And in July, it looked like a very nice uptrend, right? But when we look at the full year, right, you see that July was the peak, right? You can see this part. This is the older version, right? In July 2023, this was the visitor numbers, right? But it turns out that was a peak. After that, it sort of went down, right? We don't really know why, but hopefully the trend carries on in the upward direction, right? So office portfolio, they say there's increase in the average rent, right? So the rental is going up, and they always say that that generally their grade A offices are below market rate, right? So the market rate is apparently $11.90 per square foot, right? But you can see everything should be below that, right? Except maybe 6 Battery Road, right? So hopefully this helps in their performance in the near term, right? So with that, I think I'll end the presentation. Thank you for listening.